All right. All right. The last two sermons ago, we were talking about Jesus washing the disciples' feet, including Judas. The last Sunday that I preached, 2 Sundays ago, we were talking about the moment where Jesus is announcing that Judas is going to betray him. We were talking about that idea that sometimes we can actually be in the presence of Jesus. We can be receiving from Jesus. And we can actually be thinking about how we are going to betray Jesus. He can be with us. He can be literally in front of us. And we can still be thinking about how we are going to betray him. He can be washing our feet. He can be showing us love that is clear. A love that is clear. A love that is like we can see that kind of love. And still, we can still be at that moment thinking about how am I going to betray Jesus or betray someone else. So it's not just about being present with Jesus, but it's about also how your mind and your heart is connected with the Jesus that is there. It's not just about listening to the sermon, but it's about connecting to the ideas in the sermon and reflecting on that and be present in the sermon, being present in the moment. Sometimes we're present, but we're not present. Our minds are somewhere else, our hearts are somewhere else, thinking about something that I'm going to do, thinking about something that is going to happen, and we don't stop to be here in this moment and letting Jesus do what he is going to do. We thought about this, Peter saying, Jesus, you shall never do that. And Jesus like, let me love you, let me be here for you. That's how the verses. And in the midst of that, in the midst of the betrayal, Jesus comes to John 13, 34 and 35, and he says, a new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And then he says, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. So, welcome to the sermon, Love Like Him. We came to these verses in our last sermon, but what we're going to do today, what I want to do today, is that we're going to break those two verses in pieces. We're going to explore pretty much each one of the words in those two verses. And then you can, at the end of the sermon, put them together in whatever way you think is fine and good for you and do something about it. Are we good with that? So the first thing that we have in those verses is Jesus saying, new. Okay? New. So that word in the Greek means of a new kind, unprecedented, novel, uncommon, unheard of. We didn't have it before. Like the people at the time didn't have that commandment before. So I think that what happens is that Jesus knew about love your neighbor as yourself. He comes here, nobody has been able to do it, but Jesus does it in a way that is fulfilled. Because Jesus says, I'm not here to abolish the law, but I'm here to fulfill the law. So he comes here on earth and he does that command, love your neighbor as yourself, in a way that nobody else have been able to do it. And at that point, Jesus is able to say, let me give you a new, something that doesn't have precedent, something novel, something fresh, something that you need to hear in this moment. In the middle of betrayal, in the middle of tension, in the middle of situations that are complicated, let me give you something fresh for you, something that is going to release you, something that you need to hear. Let me give you something new. And then he says, a new command. So command can be also translated as an order, a charge, or a precept. Basic understanding of this word is not a suggestion, okay? When he's saying, let me give you a new command, a new charge, a new precept, he's not suggesting something. You can do this, or you can choose not to do it. He's saying, you need to do this. You must do this new thing that I'm going to tell you. Okay? And what do we do when we have a command? When we have something that we must do? We have two options. We do it because we believe that is something good for me. We believe in the person that is giving the command. We believe in the nation or the city or whatever is giving that command, that rule. Or we break the rule. And when we break the rule, there are some consequences out of those situations. Okay? There's only two options when we have a command. And this command is not a suggestion to do something like crazy or impossible. This is not a request to do something like, oh my gosh, like when am I going to be able to love like Jesus? If He is giving me something that I need to do, it's because I have the capabilities and the ability and the talent and everything I need to be able to do that. Otherwise, He's just sending me to the pit. If He knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it, why is He saying, let me give you a new command to you? If He knew, because the immediate context was they were in a lot of tension. He just said, you are going to betray me. He actually didn't say you, like whoever I give this bread. And then everybody is like, what? Like, what's going on? We didn't know that was going to happen. Actually, Judas in the darkness. He left the room, and some of them were like, well, he's probably going to do some business for Jesus. Like, they didn't even know what was going on. And in the midst of that, Jesus is like, let me give you this new command. It's not something crazy. It's not something impossible. It's something that you can do, that you have everything to do it. And it's something not bad for you. So it's actually something good and beautiful. If you practice this, it's going to be beautiful for you and for others. It's going to be good for you and for others. This new command that I'm giving you, it's beautiful and good. But however, I'm thinking that sometimes we will rather do something crazy or impossible than to love that individual. We will rather have a different command, something that I know I cannot do, than to love that person. You don't know that person, Danny. That person is really hard to love. Let me say that. Sometimes you would rather do something really crazy that you wish Jesus asked you a different command than to love that individual. Because that individual is particular to love. And I think you know some people like that. And you have heard this. If you don't know it, maybe it's you. In another church, someone is like, and you're here like, great. Sometimes we wish He gave another command, completely different, than to say, you need to love one another the way I've loved you. Jesus, do you mean Judas? The command is love one another the way I did. And what just happened a few minutes ago? He was washing Judas' feet. He was loving Judas. He was showing love to Judas. He didn't actually say, we talked about it, he didn't say, you are the betrayer. You need to leave the room. It was his decision. Judas himself left and went back into darkness. And now he's saying, love the way I do. And we still think and ask Jesus, but do you mean this person when this person did this to me? The context of that was he was just betrayed by Judas. And that betrayal wasn't something like, oh, but that was okay. No, that led to crucifixion, okay? That led to something really bad. There wasn't like a moment to reconciliation or stuff like that. It went to crucifixion and all the things that happened before crucifixion. The shame, the beating, and all that was, in part, thanks to Judas in that moment of like, I'm going to do it anyway. And Jesus after that is saying, you need to love people the way I did it. But do you mean Jesus? Why are we asking Jesus again? But do you mean like even the people that, the way I did? You know it's coming from Jesus. You know it's something good. But sometimes you might not want or feel to do it. But the invitation here in this part of the sermon is to do it, not because you feel that you want to do it, not because you want to do it, but because you know that's the person you are. That because you know that's the person of Jesus who is inviting you to be. That's the person you want to be. You want to be like Jesus. He said, do it like I did it. You want to be like Jesus, and sometimes you may not want to do it, but you do it because you want to be like Him. That's the person that you want to be. So you try and you do it because you want to be like Him. That was the example that we had. There's a quote from the book Atomic Habits. James Clear wrote this: every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs. But as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. It's like sometimes you may feel that you don't want to do it. Sometimes you feel so betrayed, so hard, so sad, that you wonder, should I really love that person? Did Jesus meant that person? And you do it because that's part of your identity. You are a disciple of Jesus. You are children of God. And God is love. So you want to reflect that in your identity. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but building the habit of doing things that you may not feel that you want to do it, but that you believe in Jesus and His example, can transform your life in a good way. But if you keep saying, maybe it's not that person, maybe he didn't mean this person, I don't think he was talking about this group of people, I don't think he was talking about them, I don't think he was talking about him, I don't think he was talking about her, you keep bringing that identity to yourself. You keep bringing that identity that wasn't coming from Jesus. Because Jesus said, you must love one another the way I did it. It is kind of like simple. I know it's complicated. But the more we'll build that habit of doing something like that, when it's with that individual that is complicated, that has done so much negative to my life, when I start actually loving that person and seeing that person the way Jesus sees that person, with love, even in the midst of betrayal, something can happen in your identity that you have never experienced before. Because that was kind of like the invitation from Jesus. Let me do something for you that you need in the middle of this situation. So this invitation is actually not coming when you're all happy, when you're just getting together and everything's just beautiful, when we're eating ice cream. This invitation wasn't coming when they were having a blast. This invitation of a new commandment was coming in the middle of tension. So actually when something is wrong, something is bad, something is doing something against you, this is the right moment for you to think, I need to love this person the way Jesus did it. Because I believe in Jesus, because Jesus has done it to me, and because of my new identity in Jesus, I'm going to love this person. Even if it's not what you think you should be doing, even if you think this is not what should be happening. And again, remember Judas. The next word that we have, a new command, I give. And give can be translated as bestow, grant, live you with. And I like this idea because he could have said, a new commandment, I teach. He was a teacher. They were his students. It would have made sense that he said, let me teach you a new commandment. But he wasn't saying, let me teach you. He said, let me give you. Like a present. Like something tangible. Like a gift. Let me give you this that I have, that is working in my life from when we created the world, and it's working till now. Let me give you something that I have that I think you need in this particular moment. When things are complicated, when things are going crazy, when things are going down the hill, let me give you something that you need, something beautiful for you. Let me give you this to you. I like the idea of bestow, grant. Let me leave you with this. Because I'm going to live. He said it. I'm going to live and you're not going to be able to come. But let me give you something that you can cherish, that you can have with you. It's like that teddy bear that you have that makes you remember that person. Or that's something that you have. That when that person is not here, like you can grab that. Like Princess sent me one of Tommy's blankets to camp. And first night, Ellie went to bed crying for me. And Ellie said, Mom, ask Danny to hug the blanket and think about me. So it's kind of like Jesus here, like, let me give you this. So when you are in the middle of sadness, when you feel far away from me, you can go and grab this that I'm giving you. And what is this that He's given? He said, a new commandment I give you. And the first word is love. Love, and then he's going to say one another. But kind of like the gift that he's given is love. Let me give you something. Love. I can see your pain. I can see your suffering. I can see the tension. I can see the situation here. Let me give you something that you're going to need at some point because I'm living. And you're going to need to hug that You're going to need to appreciate this. When you feel alone, when you feel depressed, when you feel that something is off, when you feel that there's nothing good about this, hold on to this. And that this is love. In English, you only have one way to say love. In Spanish, we have two, te quiero, te amo. And those two means, kind of like it has a different nuance, different level. You don't use I love you, te amo with everybody. You can use te quiero, which is more like friends, te quiero. When you say te amo to like a boyfriend or like a girlfriend, like your husband, wife, your parents, like you love them in that way. In Greek, you have 4 ways to translate love. So it's hard in English to understand that idea because you only use one for one or the other. In Spanish, we have 2. In Greek, they have 4. And Jesus is a specific type of love. And this love is agapao. He's saying agapao. This is actually a verb. But he's saying agape. So it's not phileo. It's not the kind of love that we have in friendship. It's not the eros love, the kind of romantic love, the kind of like passionate love. It's not the storge love, the kind of like we have with family and relatives. It's God's love, the one he's talking about. That sacrificial love that God gave us. It's the unconditional love that Jesus was showing in the midst of betrayal, tension, and situations that were just about to happen. He was showing them, let me give you an example. Let me give you something that you're going to need. And it is love. This is something that at some point I'm sure you're going to need, and I'm giving to you just right now. Like a gift, like a present, like something beautiful. 1 John chapter 4, verse 8 says, whoever does not love, and that love is agapao, does not know God, because God is love. And that love is agape. So he's using a verb and a noun. And he's referring to God. The noun for God is love. And that kind of love is the one that Jesus is inviting us to experience and to practice. It's not if you feel that that person has things in common with you, which could be the filial love. It's not if that person is part of your family or not, which is kind of like the storge love. It's not if you like that person. It's not if you have something like that you appreciate physically in that person. It's not that kind of love. That doesn't matter in this context. In this context, what matters is 1, that Jesus is the one inviting us to practice that love. And 2, that is a person that deserves that love. It's an unconditional love. You know what means unconditional? It means unconditional. It's not conditioned to something. If you believe what I believe, I'm going to love you. Otherwise, it's unconditional. If you think the way I think, I'm going to love you. Otherwise, it's unconditional. If you go to the place where I go, it's unconditional. Can you get that unconditional part? If you treat me in this way, it's unconditional. If you do things the way I am, it's unconditional. Which, as you can see in Jesus, just immediately before this, he is saying this, he was practicing that love. It's not if you're going to betray me, because it's unconditional, Judas. It's not if you are going to deny me, because it's unconditional, Peter. We're going to be talking about that, because that's what's coming. Now, Peter is going to deny Jesus. Peter? After saying, I'm going to do everything with you. I'm going with you everywhere. Judas, okay, we have some kind of like bad idea about Judas, but Peter? We have pretty good ideas about Peter. And now Peter is also going to deny Jesus. And Jesus is saying, a new commandment I give to love. Jesus was not having a good time, guys. And sometimes we're waiting for a good time to practice love. Jesus was not having a good time at that moment. Jesus was thinking about the things that were happening, the situations that were coming, going to take place soon. And he's saying, let me give you this. The kind of love that your Father in heaven has and is. Because he is love. And he practiced that kind of love. And then he says, as I. Sometimes you see people because you want to be inspired by people, okay? You get inspired by people and their actions, whether they are good or not, whether they are wise or unwise. Sometimes you look up to people because you want to be like some other people. But Jesus is not saying like Danny. like this or like that person. He's saying, as I, Jesus, have done it. You have a reference. You have the way to do it. So that means that we need to learn more about him in order to love like him. If you know nothing about Jesus, how are you going to be able to love like Jesus? And sometimes when you go and check out on Jesus, it kind of sounds like Jesus is not thinking the same way I'm thinking right now. Like Jesus is inviting, like in the Sermon on the Mount, people that were not supposed to be invited. Jesus is talking about people, the poor in spirit. They're going to be blessed. It's not the ones that are actually high in spirit. What's going on? You know? Blessed are the ones who mourn. It shouldn't be the mourning people. Shouldn't it be the people that are outgoing and always having fun? They shouldn't be the blessed. What's going on here? You know, you have heard this, and you have seen the Pharisees and the Sadducees doing this, and they were the people that were people looking up to. Don't do what they're doing. What? When you pray, don't pray like them. What? They were the references at that time. They were the people. They were the preachers at the time. They were the ministers at the time. That was the people that people were constantly looking up to. Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount, look at them. They're doing it wrong. What? Sometimes if you go and check on Jesus, it kind of sounds like we're in different places with Jesus. How we shouldn't be loving the community. And you go and see Jesus going to the Samaritan woman, and the disciples are like, why are you talking to that woman, Jesus? You don't know what you're doing. Sometimes it sounds like Jesus and I are in a different vibe. It sounds like Jesus and I are in a different world. And Jesus is saying, as I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he didn't generalize. He said, as I have loved you. He could have said, you need to love one another the way I have loved, period. But he didn't say that. He said, the way I have loved you. Which also gave them the opportunity to say, well, Jesus, I haven't experienced your love. Right? Because he was talking to them. They could have said something at the time. I don't see you loving me, Jesus. I don't feel you loving me, Jesus. I can say that right now. Like, you need to love the way I have done, like Danny. And some of you will be like, I don't think you're an example, Danny. Because you did this to me. You said this to me. You treated me in this way. Or you didn't see me when something was happening. You were not there when I was going through this. But they had nothing to say about Jesus at the moment. The way I have loved you. Because he brought them in. He was an example for them. He brought them together. He gave them a purpose. He sacrificed his life for them. And then he says, one another. There's this commentary on the New Testament that says, when he promotes love as the primary ethic to be cultivated among the disciples, he especially commends love among the disciples, love directed inwardly within the community rather than outwardly towards those not in the community. And I think that is interesting because he is inviting them to love one another. So at the time he wasn't talking about one another, he was talking about one another, like them. He was inviting an inwardly love. Because at that moment there were betrayals. He was talking about he was going to be absent. There was uncertainty. There were tensions. There were persecutions. And the invitation is, you need to love yourself first. You need to love one another first. Because the way you're going to treat one another and the way you're going to love one another, internally, will make a difference. Because sometimes it's easier to love outwardly. You know, when we send money to this mission, when we do this to this, it's just a one-day thing. When we go to a mission trip, when we go and give food to the homeless, it's just a one-time thing. Good luck, buddy. That's it. I'm good. I'm loving like Jesus. I can. Good luck, man, with your life. I'm not going to see you tomorrow. But when you have to love the people that you live with, ooh, here we go. When you have to love the people that you work with, that's different. When you have to love the people in your same church, now here we go. Now this is real. Yeah. When you have to love the people that don't think like you think, the people that tell you, I don't like what you're thinking, I don't like the way you think, here we go. Love like Jesus, buddies. Because he had a lot of people saying, we don't like you. We don't want to be with you. What's going on? You're not the Son of God. You must be someone else. He had a lot of people saying that. Sometimes it's easier to love outwardly because it's momentary. It's spontaneous. I won't see them again. But when you have to love inwardly, that will make a difference. And I think there's something internal in love that people know. People know when you're loving one another. They notice that. I love this internal approach. You can perform miracles. You can show compassion to others. But people will know if you love each other internally. Because Jesus says, in that way, people will know that you are my disciples. Verse 35. By this, everyone will know. Know can be translated as to learn to know, come to know, get knowledge of. So how is that people, I wonder at this point, how is that people are going to recognize us, that we're disciples of Jesus, if they don't know about this? If they don't know, like people that are outside of churches and not Christian people, how do they know that we are Christians by the love for one another if they don't know this command? Like we all know it because we have heard it several times. We're Christians, that's why we're here. But what about the people? He was talking about by this everyone will know. And everyone includes non-Christian people. Everyone will know that you're my disciples if you have this. How do they know about that? I think there is something internal. Something that connects us to our Creator that is coming from Him, and it's about love. Even if we're not consciously about this command, somehow people have that within them because everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be recognized. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants that kind of appreciation and recognition. Everybody wants have that in them because God created them. He created us and He is love. So our souls are constantly looking for love, in the pursuit of love. We want love. We need love. So when we see it, we know that there's something there. We know. We don't know how. We don't know where is that coming from. But you know that person loves you, or you know that person doesn't love you. You know if that person is real, and you know if that person is not real. You know. There's something in you, and you know it. And you cannot explain it. And I can see something different, but you know. Because there's something in you that is coming from the Creator that is giving that ability for you to recognize love or not love. People will know if we love one another. When they show up in that room and it's our first time over here, they know. And I have heard multiple times people saying, there is love in that room. But I have also heard a few times, there's something up over there. People know it. People know it. There's something in that room that something's up. They know it. I don't need to come and preach and say stuff. They know it. By this, everyone will know. There's something internally that need explanation, and people will recognize it if we actually have love for one another. From the same commentary, it says, love becomes an entry to divine knowledge. One loves in order to know God. One also loves as a way of knowing God. Love and obedience are also mutually expressive. To hear Jesus' commandments and keep them is an expression of love. By loving in this way, the disciples will reflect on earth the unity and harmony that exists in heaven. When we are actually loving one another, we're reflecting the harmony that is in heaven. We're bringing heaven on earth, like when Jesus was praying in the Sermon on the Mount. That your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. When we practice this kind of unconditional love, heaven becomes a reality here, right now, in the present. And on the other way, when we don't do it, we're not in heaven. And we're not bringing heaven into the present. So it must be something else, whatever way you want to call it. But it's not heaven. People will know if we love one another or not. And then he says, disciples. You are my disciples. Disciples are mathetes. It comes from the word math. The first one, math. And math means the mental effort to think something through. It's a learner, it's a disciple, it's a pupil. So it's a person that is constantly thinking about something. It's not that you need to not ask anything and just do it. It's a person that is actually processing that information, believing that, and making that a reality. It's not like, yes, I'm going to do whatever you want. You're actually not loving one another the way I've loved you. You need to understand that. You need to believe in that, so to practice that. And then it says, by this. And what is the this? If you love one another. This is what will distinguish you and me. There are some times that when you see a doctor, you distinguish that person because that person has something specifically. You know, you distinguish a police because the person has something. You distinguish fire person because the person is wearing something. You know what's the difference? What's something that we need to have that people will be like, yes, it's love. By this, people will recognize if you are my disciples. It's not how much knowledge you have. It's not how much you know the New Testament. It's not about how much you know the Old Testament. It's not about the connections that you know from the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's not about that. Where did you get that from, actually? Maybe Paul? A little bit from Paul? But Jesus says, by this, if you have loved for one another, this will be your signature. This will be the way you are distinguished. There are many decisions and actions that we will take, but by loving one another the way Jesus did, will make the difference between being led by Jesus or not being led by Jesus. Being led by the Spirit and not being led by the Spirit. Actually following Jesus and actually not following Jesus. Because there might be a point where you're actually saying that you follow Jesus, but it's not the same Jesus that is here talking to us. You're following a different Jesus because that Jesus that you're following doesn't love the way this Jesus in the New Testament loved. And that's why as a disciple, you're a learner, you're processing information. You're just not receiving information. You're like, yes, I believe now everything about that because it's that person saying that to me. Don't believe me, believe Jesus. Don't do the things I do. Do the things Jesus was doing. How do you know that? You need to go and check on Jesus. By loving one another will make a difference. And I think it's an appropriate way to end this sermon with 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Because 1 Corinthians chapter 13 that you have heard multiple times is using that word agape. So if you don't know what Jesus was talking about, if that's not enough, washing the disciples' feet, being in the presence of Judas, being in the presence of Peter, having that conversation, that's not enough. Let me give you 1 Corinthians starting chapter 12, the last verse in chapter 12, and then going into chapter 13. And with this, I'm going to end. And yet, says Paul, I will show you the most excellent way. And I like that intro before he's going into chapter 13. He's going to show you the most excellent way. And if this is not what you're thinking, then you need to rethink what you're thinking. Okay? If what he's going to say is not what you have had in your mind this whole time, you need to think about it again. You need to replace that. You need to erase that. Forget about it. And yet I will show you the most excellent way. If I speak in tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, agape, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I am nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Can we be the church that is recognized for this kind of love towards one another? That will make a difference. Bless you. Thank you.